again, and welcome to the Author Roundup. This special segment of the Book Connection Show showcases emerging indie authors who join us for a discussion of their newly published books. Join us for a conversation with our next guest author. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Author Roundup. I am your host today, Emma. We have a very special guest today, author Diane Ramsay. Diane has published 6 historical romance novels, which have won 5 prizes, including London Festival of Books and York Review, and her most recent book, An Improbable Alliance. Diane's books generally take place in the UK, USA, and Italy, which are all places where she has a strong connection to. Her books range in time from the 1890s Victorian era through the 1920s post-World War I era. Diane began writing during COVID in 2020 and has completed 10 historical novels since then. Hi, Diana. How are you today?
Hello.
Very
You just about summed me up there. That's about it.
Yeah. So a very impressive writing journey. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Writing is my joy.
That's awesome.
You know, I'm a full-time businesswoman. I have an insurance agency, which I run with my sons. But every moment I get, and that's COVID's, I guess that's important because we really weren't going out anywhere at that time.
Right, you have so much time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of went from little Facebook. I have a page on Facebook, short stories, and to books, and I write every chance I get.
That's awesome. So specifically for this interview, we're going to talk about your latest book, right? The Improbable Alliance. Can you share with us a little bit about this book?
Sure, absolutely. There's a lot of Gilded Age. It's the Gilded Age where this takes place, or when this takes place, should I say. So my protagonist, my main character, the woman, is a New York socialite. She's 26. She's unmarried. She turns down every offer. Of course, she's very beautiful. And her mother, 3 times married, eccentric with various wigs. She's a character. Sends her off to spend the summer with her maiden aunts in Vermont, which is not something she's looking forward to doing. But when she arrives there, she's picked up in a cart, which is not what she expected, by a farmer who is really not very well dressed, but very nice looking and, big, muscular. And it went from there. And his backstory is that he was an orphan trained boy who ended up in Vermont to replace a farmer's son who died, and he even gave him his name. So that's his backstory. So he's got a lot of issues, I suppose, and she's just been very spoiled, but together they get.
Very cool. And so this main character is Caroline, correct?
Yes, correct.
So like you said, she's sent to rural Vermont, which is a very stark contrast to her fast-paced life in New York City, a city socialite in the country, if you will. How does this change of setting shape her character and outlook on her life?
Yes, she does change. She changes quite dramatically. When he picks her up, there's a lot of banter. It's a kind of a fun part of the book because she's very rude to him. She thinks he's a dirt farmer. He's not quite that. He's quite a wealthy, medium wealthy dairy farmer.
Stereotypes him.
Yeah, she stereotypes him. And when she arrives at her aunt's house, they say to him, he's a friend of theirs, and they offer him, they suggest the dinner the following week, and she's saying, well, surely he'd prefer hard cash. And is it your habit is to befriend dirt farmers and all that? And he actually grabs her, he kisses her, and then tells her she's not as beautiful as was rumored. She doesn't like that. She's just impressing every man she meets. And
doesn't try hard, yeah.
And pretty early in the book, she behaves inappropriately and with him. which is completely at her. It's all really, she goes after him, and they're intimate outside by a lake. And he has this woman who's been chasing after him, plain Felicity Fox, but she's been chasing after him for a very long time. And she catches them, and she hates Caroline, and it's a lot of back and forwards of her trying to get revenge on her, and there's a lot of breakup to make up, and it's a lot of comedy in this book.
Nice. Yeah. So a little love triangle she sees herself in then.
Yeah. And I mean, she never has a chance with Jacob, but she tries to do everything in her power to get rid of Caroline.
Yeah. And so you mentioned in the beginning, her mom, Caroline's mom, is desperate for her to get married sooner rather than later, but Caroline is determined to marry for love. How does that tension between societal expectations and personal desire drive the story?
It's really been the case of her background as a young woman, because she's now 26. Her brother made one particularly very bad marriage where he got into a lot of debt, and apparently shot himself, but that went down as an accidental death. I mean, there's even some comedy in that. But so she needed money. So not only did she need Caroline to get married, she needed her to marry money so she would be looked after too. And then very fortuitously, her mother did come across a Mr. Ambrose Arbuthnot, who was, although he was an industrialist, he had a cannery, for goodness sake. I mean, we know we look down noses on them. He was stinking rich. So that kind of took care of her mother in a sense, but she still needed to get rid of Caroline because by now she's developing a reputation. And she has a brother, Jasper, who's also got a reputation, and she's not going to be in New York, the mother, that summer. So she decides, I'm going to send her to these aunts and get rid of her, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And she obviously expects the summers with her aunts to be unbearable, right? So how does the time away from New York and its social pressures influence her growth and perspective, I guess, on life? Does it?
There's a lot of her thinking she's going to be sent back. At first, she thinks her mother's going to Miami with her new husband. And of course, this is the summertime and it's pretty hot in Miami. But that's what her mother's plans are. And the following week, and her plan is that as soon as she's left New York, Caroline's going to go back to New York because she's not going to stay here. But this man is intriguing her, and that is really what's driving her to stay. Although there's every so often there is situations that occur between them that she's going to leave the next day, or she's always going to leave, but she somehow never does, or at least not until New York comes to her, in the sense of her brother and his partner.
This reminds me a lot of The Notebook, and the main character Allie's relationship with her mom and Noah, the love interest too. It kind of reminded me of it a little bit, the dynamic, which is always interesting to watch and read. So let's talk about Jacob. So despite their differences, they are, like we've mentioned, drawn to each other. What are some of the challenges they face due to their contrasting lifestyles and backgrounds?
Well, as I say, he's a farmer, so he works hard. It started as a hops farm, and he is self-educated, probably left school as, a 14-year-old, I think I said, or whatever he was, but he's self-educated and became a dairy farmer, and it's grown considerably. But he's working very hard.
And that's what is so intriguing to readers, two people that come from opposite ends of, the world, and completely different worlds, and how they overcome their differences and how they overcome tension, and how both perspectives, are so different, but at the same time, they feel, they belong to each other in a sense.
It's really Caroline that does the most change. It's really in her. because one thing is that by the time she's 26, by the time she goes to her aunt's house, she is bored with New York society. I mean, how many seasons can you do? I mean, she's not so much as, having seasons as just being a survivor of many seasons. And so, the family worries about her. She rushes headlong into this whole thing with him. And she's kind of the instigator of it because he feels she's too good for him. And then when that does come about, she takes like a fish to water to that lifestyle.
So their classes are, like we mentioned, very different and evident. What do you hope readers take away from their journey in overcoming?
The fact that people can adapt, the fact that she adapts. He would never adapt. A man like that would never adapt to, sitting in the drawing room, thinking about the meaning of life. But she's bored. She's bored with that anyway, and so she takes on. She surprises him with what she takes on. She takes on. He's a dairy farmer, but they also have produce and everything, and she takes that on. And his men hate her. So
you write a lot of historical fiction, and this story takes place in 1900. How does the historical context influence the plot and the characters' choices, like regarding, love and marriage and socialite expectations?
Well, that is, it's very true. Because my books will, as I say, they go from the 90s to the 20s, depending on which book it is. Yeah. And it's a period I like a lot for various reasons. It's a man's world, right? Then absolutely 100%. But women are starting to change and question and change, and just we're seeing the start of women's suffrage and things like that. So they're not just I would never write a Regency romance. It is so different then. So now we've got women who are starting to be a little bit different and more assertive. So that's why I like that. I can also make them go from here to there in trains because we got trains. And I like to joke to my readers that I like my heroines to be clean. So by then, if you're rich, you got indoor plumbing. So so that, and yet I love history and I love social history. So that's that time I find fun. And also you lead up to the First World War, the Edwardian, which is the Gilded Age, and then the First World War changes everything. Everything changes after that.
And so, like I mentioned when introducing you, a lot of your books take place in the UK, USA, and Italy, and those are places you feel a deep connection to. Why is that? Can you share a little bit more about your background and how that made its way into your books?
Because I think that now, if I was to write, although one of my not yet published books, so I do go to Russia, but I know. I live in an area where we have a lot of Ukrainians and Russians, so I get some input from them. But I feel like I have to know something about where I'm writing about, or feel it. I mean, whether I've been there, or even just to visit or live there, it's the familiarity about it that it just they're familiar. I'm also got Irish in me, so I have Irish people, and half Italian, so that's the Italian side. I lived in Scotland, and I've lived some time in England, so because I've experienced that. I don't know if I could write something in New Mexico because I've never been there, Yeah,
you have no connection to it. And obviously it definitely comes across from on the page, of your passion towards, certain areas as a writer. The readers can collect that. So it's always great to write from your passion. So you've written a lot of books, but what inspired the idea behind this book?
Behind this book?
Yes.
Well, it kind of, although it doesn't feature that much until the end, really, and I guess here and there. But I've always been fascinated by the whole Gilded Age New York thing, and that, but it doesn't really dwell on that. But the orphan train. I mean, the orphan train that was coming. There was children that were living, in the streets of New York City at that time, and there would be some institutions like the Catholic Church and others that that maybe would take these children and send them out west or to other places. He happens to go to Vermont, where a lot of times they were put upon. I mean, the boys being farmers, helping on the farm, and the girls helping with the children or the housework. Some of them were luckier than others. We know that, but it's a fascinating concept because it was such a huge thing that happened, from maybe the mid 1800s, I think through to the 20s. And so I just wanted to take a man who was sent there as a boy, who was a pickpocket in New York, by the way. And that comes around to a coincidence later on, and was sent out to some man who changed his name to replace the son that died, but who made good and became the prominent, member of the community. Because I wanted, sometimes it's because I want certain people. I hope that some of these, these children did make good because they had bad starts to life.
Yeah, they really did. So your characters have individually such amazing traits. The aunts, her mom, Jacob, Caroline. So where did the inspiration come for these particular characters? Did you have specific inspiration for individual characters, or did they all just come together, or how did the inspiration for characters start?
I'm never really sure about that. Sometimes it can be a song I hear. This might sound ridiculous, and I couldn't even tell you what, but there's one right now I'm listening to a lot, which is Diana Ross singing Surrender. That might be the next book. I don't know why, but I get stuck on it, and I really get stuck on it. And when I was writing this book, I was stuck on Glenn Campbell. Now he's not a cowboy, this guy, but I don't know if that's got anything to do with it or not.
Maybe.
But the characters develop as I wanted her to have this really, her really close to her brother, and he had to have this really wonderful personality, that he was, really smartly dressed, a pure dandy, and really, and it just occurred to me he had to be gay. Of course he was, because that, he had that verve, that really extra something. And let's face it, Jacob's a big 6'4" dope man that wears suits that look like they were from 20 years old.
Yeah.
another complete difference between them.
Yeah. And so what about the title as well? How did you come up with the title of your book?
Oh, this was a difficult one. I think I went back and forwards, and it is an improbable alliance. And sometimes I have to say, I don't know if I was good with that title or not, because sometimes I say, oh yes, this one's an improbable alliance. Other ones are easier, like The Good Barrister or Loving Leopold. But it is an improbable alliance because there are the last people on earth that should, get together.
Be together, yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did you start writing this book?
I guess, I don't know, last summer maybe? And the reason I'm unsure is because I was writing that book the same time as the one I'm doing now. And the one I'm doing right now is, I'm having a problem ending it. And we're up to 124,000 words. So it's like, okay, Diane, let's get a conclusion. Yeah. I usually try to keep them in the 90,000 word sort of category. And this one is now above it. And I'm still got yeah. So this one didn't take long. I really enjoyed writing this book, so it didn't take long. I think I did it last year.
Yeah. And so you write a lot of historical fiction. How is the balance for you as a writer of history and story, right? So and how do you go about research and things like that for each particular book?
Well, I don't know what writers did before Google.
I know, right? It's like, how did you?
And if I was to say, oh no, I go to the library and I have a whole stack of encyclopedias, I'd probably be lying. I have found that Google's a lot better than Alexa, but don't let her know. But but it's really, if I'm writing in a certain year, I got to make sure I'm not putting things there that aren't there. So when I did the book that went through the First World War, boy, that was great because I could have some telephones going on even a little bit at the end. And a lot of the I have a lot of transatlantic, and not in this one, but in other books where I can, because America had so many more mod cons than they had in England. So if they got money and they got the American connection, then they can bring over some kind of motor cars, and even though it's only 1904, 1905. So yeah, I look at Google because I want it to be authentic. I mean, I have to at least, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. And do you like the research aspect of it? Do you enjoy
It's
that
fun.
part? Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, and I also like finding names for my characters, because after 10 books, getting and you know, sometimes I'll a secondary character, or just characters that are there but are not of great importance. And the one I was doing now, I had a Mrs. Quigley, and wait a minute, there's Mrs. Quigley's in another book. She's only owned in a book. She's only owned in the tavern, but I still can't have two Mrs. Quigley, so I had to get rid of her name and do something else,
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun doing that. Or when I'm doing Italy, to going into some, Italian, and just having fun. Or credits on television. I say,
yeah. Credits,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good inspiration. So can you share what your writing experience is like with us? Is it different for each book, or what has your experience been like for this book?
The one I'm doing now, or the one that was just out? It's probably always the same. It's something I look forward to. So I just say I have a property casualty insurance agency with my two sons, and that's my day job. And at weekends, and I live alone with a cat, so weekends and early morning, evenings, I write, and that's because it's my joy to do so. So it's not something I think, I better finish this chapter. I never feel that way. And that's why I like to sometimes be in the middle of two books, or be editing one book and then be in the middle of another book, or maybe towards the end. Because I feel like, I'm kind of fed up with usually the man at the moment. So I'm going to give you a break. So, and I'll jump on the other
one. To the next one. Oh, that's interesting. Usually there's not like overlap with books, with authors writing, but I like that you.
Oh yeah. Well, my mother used to read, God rest her. She used to always be reading like two or three novels at the same time. And I used to say to her as a young girl, don't you get mixed up? And she said, no, because sometimes I get, okay, I've had enough of you. And I go, and I think I do the same thing writing.
Do you? Yeah, that's so cool. And so what part of your book, this book was the most fun part to write? Or what is your favorite part of this book?
The favorite part of this book? Well, I just love when they meet. I mean, sometimes if I'm, I'm thinking, the first chapter, I always feel like you got to be getting to know some characters, a little background. So, once you get into like the third chapter, you're having fun. So the meeting, and also some of the things that go wrong with them, which is really quite funny. A lot of the things that go wrong with them, without getting into detail. And that part was a lot of fun. And then of course I always think sometimes, like, towards the end of the book, I like to throw in something unexpected, a little bit of drama. And, but the most fun was actually, I would say their early marriage, their courtship was a lot of fun, because it was so many ups and downs, because they were so different.
And do you like writing the dialogue? Like, it seems like there's
that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes I think it's like, oh my God, I have so much dialogue. I have so much dialogue that when I'm editing, sometimes if it's it's a whole paragraph that's not dialogue, I went, oh my goodness, I put quotation marks at the end, but it's not dialogue. There's no quotation marks there. No, the dialogue's a lot of fun. That's the best part.
Yeah, I love that. I love like books that have a lot of dialogue personally. Like I like that as well.
And I like writing as I write, which is, I never write. I don't imagine me ever writing in the first person, because I like to get into everybody's head. Sometimes I'll even get into a minor person's head just for, a paragraph or so, but I like to get into both of their heads and what they're thinking. And if you're doing the first person, then of course that's not possible. So
yeah. And a lot of people like to take that approach. Yeah. So what was the most difficult part of your writing process, or do you get writer's block, or what's it like in your writing process? Do you find the most difficult?
I've had actually the one I'm doing now, where I actually, I got to a point and I'm thinking, and I just, where I'll just go and I'll just take a whole chunk out, but I'll save it. I'll save it as another version to make sure, I don't regret it. And sort of change direction a little bit. I once read from another writer, Jerry Jenkins, I think it was, who said that most writers feel once they get to 30,000 words, they got nothing else to say. And it is kind of a point where and then you think, okay, now this is going to be a book. And then I think after that 30,000 is when you really have fun. You get through that and you have fun. And as far as least part is definitely the ending. 2 reasons: you want to end it well, and the other reason is you're saying goodbye. So that's not the sad part, actually.
Is it? Yeah. So what is it like finishing a book for you? Is it sad and happy all at once, or what's it like for you when you
it's sort of like it's I don't feel, oh, that's a great achievement, now that's over. I feel like okay, that's over, and I need to start something else. I need to, I have to be in the middle of a book. And so that's why if there's 2 going on, it helps a lot. It's not too often I get that there's nothing going on. And even right now, I've got an idea for the next one because, this one's coming to an end. But it's a kind of a sad feeling. That's, I think, why when I first started writing Loving Leopold, it ended up as a trilogy because I couldn't let them go, but I've learned. I have learned. One enough.
Because you mentioned earlier that your characters feel like they're real, and it must be like hard to kind of let go of that writing journey. So how did you find Archway Publishing? What prompted you to start publishing these books, and how did you find about self-publishing?
Because when I first started, as I say, writing's my joy, but I have a full-time business. And one thing I would say, it's very unusual for somebody just coming out of the blue, coming out of nowhere to have a writing career that they're actually making a living from. So we know that, or we think that. And I thought, well, I'm coming to this a little later in my life, and I really don't want to spend years trying to get a publisher to publish it. That's how it started. So I was self-published. But now that I've done 6, I'm kind of thinking of going on a quest. I have, as I say, 4 books written, and I could, go into a query tracker sort of thing, and, agent for a literary agent, and maybe send things. And maybe I'll get somebody, who knows? I might do.
And so this book is relatively new, but what has been the nicest feedback and review from this book specifically?
From this particular book, because this is new. So from this particular book, this was a wonderfully talented writer who really knows her craft. I thought, wow, I know my craft. I like that. I get the comments I get are usually that it transports, back to the time and place, the description, the characters are memorable, you care about them, and sort of thing. And so kind of that's sort of what I get in them all.
So what did your sons think of your books? What does family and friends think of you being a writer?
Well, I think they were kind of impressed with the first one, surprised, shocked. That I did it. But it's sort of funny because, as I say, we work together. And, when I'm in the middle of something and thought process, and I'll start talking to them about somebody, whether it's Benedict or whether it's Shane. And And, they'll sort of like, who are you talking about? And I said, oh, no, it's in my book. And they say,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I thought it was a client. This is not,
Kind of blend the two worlds together.
no, I'm not talking about it. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of happens. And last year I went on vacation with my younger son, we went to St. Martin's, and I was doing editing and everything, which I love to do in Word because they can read it out. That's what I was doing. It drove him crazy. So this year we went away and he got me earbuds. And that was wonderful. So, I mean, yeah, Diane Coia-Ramsay came into the modern world, so he didn't have to hear any of it.
That's funny.
But my nieces and sisters, they read it and things like that. And I have some friends that do, but I always like to get, this feedback or reviews from people that don't know me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What advice would you give writers hoping to publish his or her own first book?
My advice would be just write about something you care about, something you enjoy, and make it into an enjoyable experience, but not something that's hard.
Yeah. And so is historical fiction the first genre that you've worked on? Do you have an idea or want to work on any other genre, or do you just want to stick with historical?
No, I think I might go really going out in the wing here. I might go to the Second World War. Okay.
Okay.
Now we're
big
really
big move.
We're in the 1940s, and I'm thinking I might do something in that, but I don't see me ever doing anything present day. Mm-hmm. I don't. I live present day. I live where we're all looking at it, which we are, and me included. And my books it's escape into another time, another place, and that's what I write for. It's so you can read it and maybe feel that escape into another time and place without something that's too taxing or depressing, or as I've said to many people, I don't want anybody you care about to die in it or care too much about anyway.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're on a current book right now, but what other professional or personal goals do you have for, I guess, the end of this year and next? What's it look like for you?
Well, as I say, I'm trying to get into getting a literary agent, or trying to, I don't know, research more. My dream, I think my books are perfect for a mini series, or
they are.
I mean, because hey, the screenwriters even got a lot of dialogue. I mean, feel free to change some of it, but I think that's what it's perfect for. And there seems to be a craze for that sort of thing right now. Mm-hmm. And how many versions of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice can you watch?
I know, right?
I mean, or Jane Eyre. I mean, and I've probably watched them all, and to me, they almost get worse. It's or not, maybe not so, but how many versions of them can you watch? And
right,
and the part of that, which I may have said earlier, is that that most of these kind of historical books that were written, and they tend to end, metaphorically, when the couples ride off into the sunset. And I always felt I missed something. I wanted to know what happened next, and my books are about what happens next.
I like that. Yeah. Very cool. Mini series, that would be great. I mean, honestly, have you seen Bridgerton?
Yes.
That's what it reminds me of. And also the background, you have a Bridgerton blue in the background as well. So that's instantly.
Oh, I never thought about that. There we go.
Yeah.
But Bridgerton is set in the Regency time. So that is set further back. So there's no trains.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and it's popular, isn't it?
Yeah. We love, everyone loves time period pieces. And I mean, I do, I just enjoy it. So I know that people,
and there's not really enough, is there?
Yeah, everyone really does love these type of novels and genre. So I think you really did a great addition to the genre, and I hope you continue to write more. And
I thank you for that.
Yeah. And I do think that's all the time we have for today. Is there anything else that you want to mention to our readers or listeners? Do you have any social media
I
or
do
website
have
you
a
want to have?
search. Yeah. I guess I have a website. www.dianecoia-ramsay.com, which is just my name, my pen name, and But other than that, my books there's 6 of them, and they're all available Amazon and all every online bookseller, and buy them and review them. They're very
Yes.
good.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, if you enjoyed this interview and if you would like to purchase the Improbable Alliance and read more about Caroline and Jacob's story, please head to archwaypublishing.com or, like Diane said, Amazon and Barnes and Noble. You can also purchase it from there. And thank you so much, Diane, for
Yeah.
sharing your story and for this interview.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it very much.
All right. Well, thank you for listening and watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.